Is joining us. Is still Moneyline with me, Nancy. This is your top destination for business, market, finance, economy, investment, information. You should always tune in 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. To our loyal viewers, thank you very much for always making this show a part of your menu for the day. On Monday, we did start the series on achieving inclusive. Inclusive is the word there. Economic growth, because I realized that in the past few years, I think from 2010 to 2014 or so, or even from 2007, 2008 to 2014, we achieved an average growth rate of about 6, 7, 8% or thereabout. But then it was still a jobless growth. The caveat there right now, which we've been discussing from Monday till now, is inclusion. Inclusive, so that it can be inclusive for you, it can be inclusive for me. Economic growth should not just favor a sector of people that are involved in income or production generating sectors of the economy. My guest is joining me right now. In the studio here is Mma Amara Ekeruche. She is a research analyst at CSEA. That's the Center for the Study of Economies of Africa, for Africa. Okay. Welcome. How are you, Amara?
Thank you, Nancy. I'm very fine, thank you.
Okay. And Paul Alaje is joining us on Skype from the Commercial Nerve Center. Paul, can I see you? How are you, Paul?
Yeah, very fine.
Paul, what is happening? Have you left us in Abuja and you're going to Lagos that is not really so friendly right now? No Okadas, no keke. I know, are you in the bracket of those that hop on Okadas? Everybody can even hop on Okada in Lagos. So far,
yes.
You know.
We are, it's good to trek. It's good for the body. We started trekking now, and we hope that the coming period, maybe we'll change from trekking to using bicycle to walk. Oh. Particularly in Lagos.
Don't just even get me started on bicycle, because if we say let's take bicycle, the infrastructure is not there for us to take bicycle. I remember there was a former Minister of Transport, he's late now, Minister Ojo Madwekwe, he's late, that did canvass that we should begin to encourage bicycles in the country, and that did not go far. If you're talking about bicycles, you should have the infrastructure. The Nordic countries have done better in that. I think Finland and Denmark, where you have people hop on their bicycles, they pack it, there's a bicycle park. So don't get me started in that. But Paul, thanks for joining us. Now, let me start with you before I come to Amara here in the studio. We started the, Paul, can I see you? Are you still there? We started
yes.
Okay. We started the series on Monday on achieving inclusive economic growth. My guests profiled some solutions which I'll reel out towards the end of the program. But what are the key fundamentals for us to address to achieve that inclusion in economic growth?
Oh, okay. So when we talk about inclusive economic growth, we are talking about productive capacity that are not that are underutilized. Maybe they are not included in the growth plan or in the country's growth, or you're talking of a sector that is completely not involved in this growth. So what we have is we have an economy in which you have a lot of people in rural environments that are not also involved in economic growth. We have people who are not also involved even in financial system to even capture them in economic growth. So this is the dichotomy we have. Some persons are captured in formal sector, some of them are not even captured at all. So for Nigeria now, to come into your conversation of getting included in economic growth, as we speak, using GDP as a measure, only 2.228%, if you like, is the economic growth measurement. Now, how will this even trickle down? We understand it's lower than population growth, but how is this getting to everybody? How is it becoming what all can have or all can have access to? It's a different conversation entirely. So what are the fundamentals? Fundamentals are 5 for any economy to make sure people or its population are largely involved with economic growth. The first of all, when it comes to inclusive in economic growth, will be systems and structure. So I'm building institution. First of all, when we look at our institution and we look at system and structure, I give you an example. Federal government says it wants to bring out a contract, and this contract is to construct, say, road in Nnaji, and it's going to cost about billion naira. So this 5 billion naira project is what will provide jobs for people, locals that will work as contractors, some will work as carrying brick and mortar and so on and so forth. But what we have seen over time, not in all ministries, but in some ministry, before the work gets to the community, you see that right from the people approving the project, you've seen a number of kickbacks. So what gets down to the people is far lower than that. And at times, the project could even be abandoned. So how do we engage productive capacity, either in Alkila, in Sokoto, or Nnewi? So it becomes a bit of challenge for some persons to be engaged or to be involved. So institution, we need to now work on this institution. For me, I've mentioned on your show before that for us to include more people in inclusive economic growth and want to build institution, we should adopt electronic pattern, electronic formula. We should not just say people have bidded and everybody can see it's transparent enough. This is the question. Do you know that the person constructing road in Abuja, the company constructing road in some part of Abuja, in some part of Kaduna, is the same company I've seen constructing same road, two companies particularly, constructing road even in Lagos, Ibadan. Now there could be others, but these are the ones I've seen consistently. The question is, most of these particular two companies are not even Nigerian companies. And when they earn profit, they will not stay with us. They will be repatriated. What is wrong with us knowing? If I have not been to those three locations, I might have not even have known that these are people that have been getting jobs steadily from the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. So, but what do we do to encourage more people? It is when we know, maybe there is a publication that says an ongoing project is handled by this organization. The Nigerian companies, we know they need to sit up so that they can get more engagement. Or we might talk about even including, local content more in job delivery. Second one is building infrastructure. And I will classify this into two. Power. Power is so very central, so very important. And I have advised that the President and Mr. President that perhaps if you have 10-point agenda, summarize them to 1-point agenda, provide power. A lot of people in rural community that are saying they don't have job and all of that, initiative will come when there is constant power supply. There is no country, you in Abuja, with the guests in Abuja, myself, would like to spend your holiday in the coming period if you know that power is an issue and you say you are going on vacation. It becomes an issue. So how much and more of our people we have access to this growth when there is no power supply? Then other infrastructure, which of course include roads. How do we connect rural community to us? Well, I was in Benin the other time and I met a man I almost prostrated for because I thought he was 65. And he said, "Oh, young man, I am only 34 years old, but I look old because I am always frying gari." He has fried gari for almost 14 years. So he suddenly became old because of the kind of job and not using technology to process cassava into gari that is mostly consumed in various parts of Nigeria today. So if you don't put technology, so when you even add the output, how will it connect the output into community where they will consume some of this output that he had as his production? Is another major issue we need to look at. So including economic growth, we now has more to do with the third one, which is education. We cannot build a viable, strong economy that will be inclusive of all if education is not at top.
Okay, Paul, can you hear me?
Projects. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, let me just halt you a bit and bring in Mma Amara here with me. Mma, what are your thoughts on inclusion?
Okay.
When it comes to economic growth? Paul has told us what his thoughts are. Are you in line with him? Are there some other things you need to add? Because I've also realized in the case of Nigeria, is wider because we have more things grappling with us, no infrastructure, poor infrastructure, gender, fairness isn't there, a whole lot of things. And so what are your thoughts?
Okay, so to a large extent, I agree with what Paul said. Infrastructure is a major challenge. So infrastructure within Nigeria, our transport infrastructure, roads, infrastructure also from Nigeria to other countries. So we just signed the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. We have to start thinking about ports. if we intend to increase the number of exporting firms. So infrastructure, education as well. But for education, I would say it's not just achieving the basics, literacy and numeracy skills. No, we're living in a skills-based economy as we speak globally. It's possible for people to be in Nigeria and also work in, say, tech companies in California. So introducing skills to even secondary school curriculum, you have data analytics, you have coding skills, so that when people graduate, they're not just looking for jobs within Nigeria, they can also get jobs outside of Nigeria. Another thing I would add is labor regulations. Nigeria has very poor labor regulations. The wage gap between C-suite executives and regular employees is so wide. We have to, you know, work on that. And also ways to improve productivity of firms, manufacturers, farmers. It's not enough to just throw cash at them. So there's been a lot of programs, anchor borrowers programs where they give loans. There's been the recent directive by the CBN to provide loans to the real sector. I mean, one thing is providing them with this money, but also there needs to be more strategies that will improve their productivity. How can they produce more with the same inputs or with even less? Yeah, and another thing is creating a fair regulatory system. So recently there was the ban on forex for milk, and then you turn around and then, you know, allow or exempt a few companies to start importing milk. So there's also that issue.
Okay. Any other thing you want to add?
Another thing I would want to add is maybe incentivize companies to export. So like I said, the AFCFTA agreement that was recently signed is a move towards that direction. Enhance international trade opportunities. Several studies have found how exporting firms have enhanced productivity compared to firms that do not export, because they have to match whatever they are producing, their outputs, to the international standard. So that's...
Okay, Paul, let me come back to you to allow you to conclude on your thoughts. You gave me three things that we need to address. So what are the two other fundamentals that you're proposing? You talked about system structure, infrastructure, education, technology. What are the remaining two?
The remaining two, first is the one research carried out by SPM Professionals, which revealed to us that countries that solely rely on agriculture as a dominant way of engaging its people, apart from that, these countries are also...
Okay, we've lost Paul there. Paul, let's try and connect with you again, but Mma, let me come back to you. If we take a look at the recovery that we've seen so far, 2% recovery for the economy, which is not something we should just be happy about. Okay, we should be happy because we've left the recessional, yes, the recessional curve. Now we're on the path of growth. But are there green shoots? I would say there are green shoots of recovery anyway. Are there risks to the downside about the current economic growth which we have right now?
Well, for me, I would say it's not just to focus on the numbers, right? So since 2000, we've had, except for the 2016 recession, between 2000 and 2014, we've had a GDP growth rate upwards of 5%. In 2002, it's peaked at 15%. So it's not just the GDP growth rates, right? How do we achieve broad-based economic growth rates, right? So growth that's cuts across several sectors. A lot of this growth is driven by the oil sector, and the oil sector employs a very negligible amount of Nigerians, 0.01%, very negligible. So it's first achieving broad-based economic growth rate that cuts across sectors, and that can also bring in more Nigerians, employ more Nigerians.
So with that, we would also create better quality of jobs, because I did also mention, I think on Monday or Tuesday or thereabout, I think we have about 70 million Nigerians that are currently employed, that have active jobs. That's the 40 hours a week as put by the MBS, but a lot more of us are underemployed, are unemployed. How do we ensure that other sectors of the economy, apart from oil, just like you said, if we want to bring it down, we'll bring it down to like sectors of economy. You have primary, secondary, you have tertiary. Tertiary where you have like services. Secondary where you have like processing, manufacturing. Primary, agriculture. Just like Paul has said, that we should just go beyond agric. I support the president when he says, let's produce what we eat and eat what we produce. But I should also tell the president that the world has gone beyond that. In fact, they used to say the man has 3 basic needs, isn't it, for life? Was it clothing, food and shelter?
Basic,
The world is showing us now is more than that.
True.
Do you understand? So we need to
think beyond
that. How do we ensure productivity in other sectors? How do we ensure that apart from productivity, other sectors among the 45 sectors, primary, secondary, tertiary, I'm sounding like an economist teacher this morning, among those 45 sectors are productive and inclusive. Sorry, guys, I hope you all are understanding what I'm saying. I know you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. So this growth would have to be market-driven. The government cannot employ the large number of people that do not have jobs. It will have to be market-driven, but at the same time, the government will have to provide a facilitating environment or play a facilitating role. And a lot of what the government will have to do has been mentioned, providing infrastructure. So transport infrastructure, electricity, also, putting in regulations to protect workers. It's possible that there are a lot of companies that earn high profits, but then that doesn't trickle down to all the employees. So protective regulations, labor market regulations. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about wages. Because even if you want to achieve economic growth, you must also take a look at the wage system in an economy. Minimum wage now 30,000 naira. Some states have said, okay, they will go ahead to pay. Some have not implemented. Labor or Trade Union Congress all saying that those states need to implement. How essential is our wages or salaries right now in ensuring that inclusion, which we are talking about? Will it deliver inclusion?
Of course. So the idea behind inclusive growth is achieving economic growth and at the same time ensuring that poverty levels fall. And one way to do that is wages. So apart from also generating more jobs, ensuring that people who are employed, over time, they have increased growth in their wage. And well, closely linked to that is also productivity, because you're going to be paid to the extent that you're productive. Yes. So goes back to the same issues. It's the same circle. Improve productivity, increase wages, and then poverty
falls. Do you think
falls.
that Nigerian workers are productive?
That's a dicey question. To an extent,
is it a dicey question?
I think we are.
Or you don't want to answer it. You want to answer it smartly. Give me an honest answer. Do you think Nigerian workers are productive? I don't just mean labor. I don't mean government workers. Government workers is another issue. I'm not berating them more. But are Nigerian workers productive? When you put out that productivity question, are we all productive?
Yes, I would say we are. Particularly in the private sector. Yes, I would say Nigerian workers are productive. We have people working till 9 p.m. Although I also understand that
if you work till 9 p.m.
I also understand that the time you spend does not necessarily translate to your output.
Yes.
But we have, Nigerian workers are productive. Okay, so we have people who migrate to other countries, doctors, the tech guys, and you see them making strides in other countries. So yes, we're productive. I think we're intelligent. And we also, one thing about Nigeria is we have the population. So we can actually do good if certain systems are in place, if the structure is in place, because we have the population. And it's important for us to get it right at this point. 50% of our population are below 18. So putting these structures, these systems in place, ensuring that productivity peaks, ensuring that growth is not just focused or is not just driven by a few sectors, but we see growth in other sectors, and these sectors employ large numbers of people. If we can get that right, I mean, the sky will be our limit.
How do you look at this, that when Nigerians leave the shores of the country, they are more productive abroad? Perhaps because the structure and the systems there are different. Perhaps the wages are higher and all of that to encourage them to be more productive than they are right here. Are you saying that perhaps if those systems are also put in place here, Nigerians will be more productive than we are right now?
Of course, of course. So the systems, of course, is one, but I don't think it's the salary that is making them productive. So simple economics shows that people will pay you to the extent to which you deliver, right? So it's their already established productivity levels that attracts that wage, or that makes it possible that when they apply for a job, people see what they can deliver and then they pay them that wage. But the problem in Nigeria is, for a lot of jobs, a lot of companies, particularly MSMEs, the wage structure is terrible. You have the CEOs, even in banks, you have the CEOs earning ridiculous, salaries, and then the regular employees are paid peanuts. And obviously, when you climb up the ladder, it will get better. But a large proportion of us are regular employees, exactly. So that's why the growth is not, it's part of the reason why the growth is not trickling down.
Let's talk about gender fairness. How should it be equitable? We also raised it on Monday and on Tuesday, and I'm glad that I'm having you here as another woman to talk about it. For those that have been watching me over the years, I constantly complain of how many women I get to interview. Not that I don't want to interview women. Sometimes we reach out to them, they are not really, cut out for this. Sometimes, if you speak to, oh, okay, but I'm not berating women, but I'm just saying, how do we ensure gender fairness from perhaps a feminine lens right now? I did also say on Monday, I think it was in Norway in 2003, that they put out a policy saying that 40% of women, of boards should be women. And we see where Norway is today. Some people may say, okay, the population is not big and all of that, it's not large. But that's not an issue. The issue is that the systems which they've put in place, how do we ensure more women? How do we ensure that more women are put in productive roles, boardrooms, executive positions, and what have you? And women are perhaps adequately also paid as their counterparts, as their male folks.
Okay, so in my opinion, a lot of the gender inequality or gender imbalance that we find in Nigeria, they are driven by sociocultural factors. There are certain roles where, as a woman, it will be difficult for you to thrive in, and perhaps those roles, they pay more. So I'll give you an example. Research, for instance, it's a very rigorous field. You will have to go on field, a lot of report writing, a lot of analysis. It takes time. For a woman that is married with children, it will be difficult. It's not that your employer is, is biased against women. It's just the way that field is structured. And not only research, there are other fields. Engineering used to be like that, but I think women are also breaking into that space. So one major issue is sociocultural norms. To the extent to which that can be tapered down, the sociocultural norms, I don't know about that. But another way that gender balance can be achieved is through regulations. You've mentioned Norway. A lot of companies are also seeing the need for women and seeing how women they have their peculiar characteristics, and then they bring something different to the table.
Just like you said, a lot of companies, was it Goldman Sachs 2 weeks ago? Or one was Davos. I heard the chief executive officer of Goldman Sachs say that they are making it right now a policy that they would not do businesses with businesses that do not have diversity
yes.
on their board.
Yes.
And people were asking questions if other companies would, would follow suit. Talking about women, there's a certain element we'll bring to the table, isn't it? What is that exactly?
Okay, so for banks, I hear that cashiers, the rooms where the money is kept, right, that bankers or the C-suite executives, they would rather employ women because women hardly steal. Yes, if a woman tells you it is 5 naira, it is 5 naira. So women are more honest. Also, what may be driving that is also the sociocultural environment. Men, on the other hand, are required to be the breadwinners. So it's also possible that less demand is being placed on women to bring money, right? Another dimension that women bring, I would say it's maybe for hospitality industry, for instance, the nurture, the care, women have that extra touch.
That reminds me of an experience I had, I have to say it, with the immigration service, Nigerian immigration service. Let me tell you what I experienced there. When I went to their office, I noticed that at a section before you capture, at the section at the capture points where they take your passport or your photograph, they have a section whereby perhaps women or parents that bring their children to capture go to play. When I know, do you like a play area?
Oh, okay.
Let me put it that way. So if you take your child to capture, and you know children, they'll keep making noise, crying and all of that, you take them to that section within that area.
And they play and they're safe.
And they play and they're safe.
Perhaps female immigration workers that bring their children there can also, so
and
an inclusive workplace.
Thank you very much. In fact, I got talking with one of the directors, one of the women at the helm there within the capture the area, and she told me that it was her idea to get it, and I was like, fantastic. I really applauded it. I said, these are why women should be given an opportunity. A man may not really think towards it. I said, okay, even for women that have, you know, children, you see them now work longer hours.
True.
Because they have a place where their children can play. That is part of gender inclusion that we're talking about. And I went further to tell her, okay, fine, you can also suggest to your CG to do a crutch to ensure that even female officers can also bring their children and they work a bit longer hours.
During school holiday periods.
So that's what we're talking about. I just had to bring that in when you were thinking. So at least for that, I applaud the Nigerian Immigration Service, and the CG should encourage more women, more decision-making from women. But let's move over to the other aspect of taxes. Because if you're taking a look at taxes, a government gets money from taxes to ensure that the economy should grow by putting money in infrastructure and all of that. How do you think that taxes should be handled in Nigeria in terms of it's not just people that will pay the taxes, and we know where the taxes end up in. I know there is a finance act now and all of that. How do you think the issue of taxes should be addressed?
Okay. First of all, I think the recent policy where the government allows small companies with an annual turnover of less than 25 million naira to exempt them from tax payments, I think that would go a long way in improving inclusivity in the economy. However, to the extent to which taxes can be used to ensure inclusivity, I don't think that is very feasible. So the government has had several initiatives, income redistribution initiatives. We've had the conditional cash transfer programs, yes, where obviously that's taxpayers' money. Yes, is being given to rural poor households, 5,000 naira. We had the popular trader money where 10,000 naira was given to petty traders. That's good. However, the gains from that will be minimal. Also, there are also sustainability issues. At what point do you stop doing those income redistributive initiatives? Obviously, they've stopped. You can't continue that for an extended period of time.
So social protection measures are not enough?
No, they are not enough. They are not sustainable. It's not a long term. It cannot be part of your long term agenda. Yes.
Should the wealthy pay more?
That's also a dicey question. Progressive tax in Nigeria.
Wealth tax.
Wealth tax.
Yeah.
Well, we see that well, I don't think the wealthy should pay more.
Why?
It's their money, they worked for it. I mean, we see other countries, America trying to, reduce wealth tax. I honestly don't think they should pay more, but that's a subjective question. Yeah.
Because they worked for their money.
You can't say, because, say for instance, Africa's richest man, because he's the richest man, and then you ask him to pay more for being, hardworking or being, no. What you can do is ask him to pay more to his employers. Yes, so that labor market regulation, where the gap between the executives, COO, CEO, and the regular employees are, where the gap is not too wide.
Okay. Can we have inclusive economic growth without inclusive governance?
I would say yes.
Okay, how?
Yes, so inclusive governance is, gender inclusivity, including the North, the South, geopolitical regions. To an extent, I don't think it depends on where the leader is from. So if it's somebody from the North, but he has an inclusive mindset, it doesn't matter where he's from, right? It's possible that he can deliver and lift millions of Nigerians out of poverty. But obviously, having people in your cabinet from different regions across both genders is important.
How important is industrialization in all of this that we're talking about? How important? Yes.
Very important. So the industrial sectors, manufacturing, whether it's mining, those sectors have been known to employ large numbers of people. And we have a large population. In order for us to provide this population with jobs, ensure that they're being paid, industrialization is key. Very key.
How about government policies?
Yes,
I asked that same question, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. What kind of policy should government adopt that will generate inclusion along the economic growth value chain? Government policies, not just government policies that are somehow inimical to locals, but thinking that they would help local businesses grow. But meanwhile, you're not helping your local businesses grow. And not just local businesses grow to the extent that the business person can afford to put the child in school or afford 3 square meals. No, we're looking at encouraging businesses to grow even beyond the borders of Nigeria, exports into other countries, and also create, like Dangotes. I always say, we should create a system that will create more Dangotes. You can imagine how many billionaires are in America. Anybody can just be a billionaire in America by virtue of what government has set out. So should we, you understand what I mean? Yes.
I understand. So I would say taper down on restrictive policies. There are a lot of import bans. You just mentioned Dangote. He is a monopolist. In order for us to, okay, I won't say monopolist, but it's an oligopolic market, right? Where he is the major producer of cement. In order for us to have more Dangotes, we have to taper down on such restrictive policies, import bans, banning forex for imported items. We have a list of those items. I would say to taper down on such restrictive policies.
On such restrictive policies. Now let's bring in our viewers. In case you have a question, you can send us your comments. We just have a few minutes to go on the show. I'm seeing a tweet by Modernized Guy on Twitter. He said, "My name is John. I am a barber. Aside that, I also specialize in the following areas: barbing and beauty salon consultancy, salon construction setup, barber supply and salon staffer trainer. I'm that guy you need to talk to when you think about going into hair salon business." Singular, are you really advertising right now on my Twitter page? Anyway, like they say, sell your market. So I've sold it for you. Anyway, Lukman Giwa says, inclusive growth should be bottom up. We all live in the local government. Our LGs need to be more organized, resourced, and become engine of socio-economic growth. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. It's the people, like I said, it's a market-driven growth. It's the people, the private sector that would achieve this growth. But at the same time, there has to be an environment where, I mean, okay, so you mentioned the Okada ban in Lagos. That will definitely affect MSMEs. So the government has to play a more supportive role in ensuring that the inclusive growth is bottom up.
Yeah, what Lukman said is very, very fundamental. Our local governments need to be more organized, resource, and become the engine of socio-economic growth. Because how do we even achieve inclusion without our local governments working optimally? I don't mean coming to, okay, states are supposed to they are supposed to be autonomous, they are supposed to control their affairs. Our states are not making them control their affairs. What can be done so that our LGs could be more, could be felt more, they could impact on lives more, because everyone comes from a community. That's the first part of my question. The second part of my question, how do we encourage that community? Should we have like one local government, one product kind of policy, whereby you have a lot more people come into that economic net and become, more productive?
For the local governments, I would say providing them with financial independence. They're heavily dependent on state governments. For a lot of states, the governors choose the LGA chairman. They dictate when funds should be disbursed to these LGAs. So providing them with financial independence and ensuring that everybody participates in the decision-making process to choose these leaders. And so they're able to choose leaders that have their interests at heart. And then to your second question on
the local government, one community, one product.
One community, one product. That's possible, it's feasible, particularly because certain areas are gifted with specific resources. So it's feasible. Delta, where I come from, we can produce, we had the Delta Steel Company, industrialization. Local governments can pick that up, communities can pick that up, and then go ahead, go on. Okay.
Emmanuel on Twitter is saying, your guest has said it all. Government should taper down policies and create room for more industries and industrialists. Industrialization will create more employment. You said it all, isn't it? What are your final thoughts as we end the show today? Quickly, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts will be, it's important for us to achieve inclusive economic growth. And it's important for us to achieve it now, based on the population trends. It's very key. Also, a lot more countries are populist, so they're becoming more conservative in terms of receiving migrants. So it's important for us to achieve it in order that we are able to achieve long-term economic growth and also security.
Okay. Very essential.
Yes.
We talked about that on Monday. All right, just before we end the show, I've put together the solutions as postulated by my guests since Monday, including what Amara has said and Paul. Can we quickly take that card quickly just before we go, just a few seconds? The number one there is right leadership selection process. Yes, thank you guys. Right leadership selection process, solutions to achieve inclusive economic growth. The series I've done since Monday, so those are the solutions there. Government-friendly policies to businesses, economic diversification for job creation, like we said earlier, about 45 sectors. It shouldn't just be oil. And a lot of people, a lot of economies are going beyond oil. So there's an oil transition. Let's also think about that. Proper policies to lift Nigeria's 98 million people. Social protection measures are not enough. A multidimensional approach to increase the quality of growth. Deliberate policies targeting human capital development, health, education, and environment. Gender fairness to enable women earn more. Socio-economic and political inclusion for women. Provision of rural-urban infrastructure for market access. As Paul says, system structure, institutions, and technology should also be looked into. Raising productivity in all sectors, as said by Mma Amara here, creating a fair regulatory system. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Those are the solutions as put together by all of you. I've interviewed since Monday. Thank you, Ma, for coming.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
All right, I've been speaking to Mma Amara Ekeruche, research analyst at CSEA. Paul Alaje also joined us.